It's Sunday, 8 September 2024. Welcome to Nation Watch. From wherever you're joining us, we extend warm greetings to you. This is the month of September. It's Indigenous Heritage Month, and Guyanese, Indigenous Guyanese are celebrating um, heritage all across Guyana. The Heritage Village over at Sophia is a hive of activity. And of course, we understand that the Heritage Village 2024 is Campbelltown in Region 8. But there will be celebrations in every Indigenous village and community across the country. Happy Heritage, Guyana. Today, we will be discussing law and order. Law and order, things that are missing in large measure from our society. And joining me in this conversation today, Sunday, September 8, 2024, is Mr. Paul Slowe, CCH, DSM, Assistant Commissioner of Police retired and former chairman of the Police Service Commission. Mr. Slowe, welcome to Nation Watch, and thank you so very much for taking time out from your busy schedule to join us in this conversation on law and order.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and happy Sunday to all the viewers.
Mr. Slowe, you've had a distinguished career in law enforcement. I think you have had 37 years of active service as a police officer. After that, you served as chairman of the Police Service Commission, a higher calling, a greater responsibility, which you discharge with distinction as well. Too many things are happening in Guyana, in the Guyana Police Force particularly. There are allegations of corruption in the Guyana Police Force at a very high level. There are allegations of senior police officers being involved in money laundering activity. There are allegations of impropriety. There are allegations in a recent situation at Matthews Ridge in Region 1, where there was a cocaine bust of 4.5 tons of cocaine, which we'll discuss later on. But there were suggestions that a senior police officer was allegedly implicated in turning a blind eye to what was happening, suggesting that someone knew but did nothing about it. All allegations, all allegations. Have you, Mr. Slowe, in your 37 years of serving as a police officer, have you any recollection of this volume of negative reports and allegations against senior members of the Guyana Police Force? And what does this kind of thing do to the morale of the serving members of the Guyana Police Force, who, by the way, I'm hearing are tendering resignations at a fast rate, but that those resignations are not being accepted by the High Command? Again, another allegation. Talk to us on your service and the implications of these allegations.
Well, thank you, Mervyn. So as you indicated, I served in the Guyana Police Force for 37 years, rising to the rank of Assistant Commissioner. I retired in 2010, and I must add, when I retired in 2010 at the rank of Assistant Commissioner, I had been in that rank for 11 years. 11 years I spent at the rank of Assistant Commissioner. That's another story as to why that was so. I was qualified to be promoted, but the political directorate at the time did not find favor in promoting me. Anyhow, I retired in 2010, but I can say this without any fear of contradiction. The Guyana Police Force, for the years I served, and even before, right, has never been so involved or alleged to be so involved in corrupt activities. And I want to be fair. There have always been allegations that the rank here or rank there were corrupt, traffic ranks, other ranks. Allegations have been made. But what we have now is allegations being made against very, very senior people. That is unprecedented. You alluded to the money laundering allegation that the Calvin Brutus, assistant commissioner, deposited $16.5 million into the police credit union. And he said, in by way of explaining that amount of money, that money was gifts prior to, during, and after a wedding reception. The ranks at the police credit union initially accepted the money. And when it was realized that the transaction might have been unlawful, the money was returned to him. They were then victimized in that the acting commissioner called them, berated them, and transferred them from that location. Then the other allegations against the very Brutus, that when well, as we would have known, that he indicated that he was going to proceed and leave. He requested leave to facilitate the investigation into this alleged money laundering and other financial improprieties. That is what they claim. And the acting commissioner on tape denied that any money was lodged. He denied that any investigation was ongoing. And he was proved to be a liar. So from a policing perspective, if an offense is being investigated and the person there, the commissioner, says, no, that's not so, no money was lodged, then he's complicit in the whole thing. He attempted to cover up this. So not only that, but then we learned through the media that the bank accounts belonging to Brutus and his wife were frozen by the bank due to some investigation that is going on. These are allegations against a very, very senior police officer, unprecedented. So yes, while we have had allegations from time to time, one would recall when Henry Green was commissioner, he demitted office after a rape allegation. A rape allegation was made against him. I think that might have been the most serious allegation against a senior officer in my memory. But here you have money laundering allegation, financial improprieties allegation, attempt by the acting commissioner to cover up this matter, and you know it's shameful what is going on. It is shameful what is going on. Then you made reference to the recent drug bust at Matthews Ridge in Region 1. This is an operation based on what is being reported in the media that took several days. The gain account in the media, KANU, the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit of Guyana was involved. The Special Forces of the Guyana Defense Force was involved. And then you had the Drug Enforcement Agency is in the U.S. It is astounding that the Guyana Police Force, the major or primary law enforcement agency in Guyana, was kept in the dark. They kept them. They did not involve them in this operation. Clearly, in my view, that was so because they do not trust them. Can you imagine that? A major drug operation in Guyana, which led to the discovery of 4.5 tons of cocaine with a street value, they say, of almost 200 million Guyana dollars. The largest ever.
US dollars.
200 millions, huh? 200
US dollars.
US dollars, sorry. I said Guyana dollars, 200 million US dollars. And can you imagine such an operation? And the police are not involved in this operation. They kept them out. And as I've said, and the only reason that could be so, because they did not trust the police to be involved and to give them information with respect to this. And then shortly thereafter, I saw a news item which suggests that a senior police officer is said to be fingered in this whole drug operation in Region 1 in Northwest. And, you know, it's sad because despite what they're saying, shortly after, I think as recent as yesterday, those same persons were now removed. The officer who was in charge there has been removed, he's been replaced, and others have been moved around. So yes, we are in a serious problem when it comes to law and order in Guyana.
Mr. Slowe, the issue of rotation. Recently, there was some rotation with the high command, where the person responsible for operations and the person responsible for administration were shifted around. And I think the officer who was in charge of the special branch was moved, I believe, to operations. And what is interesting is that the police high command said, look, this is about rotation for improving knowledge and so on. But that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you had a divisional commander who authored a letter to the crime chief, I believe it was, if the letter is authentic that I saw, standing up and representing his command and pointing out a number of issues that he felt needed to be expressed, including pointing out and naming a number of officers from the Criminal Investigation Department that were assigned to that particular division on the East Coast, I think it was, who were under investigation for misconduct. And he was sent to the strategic planning desk, which you know is a dumping ground where there is no productive work available for anybody to do. And then after the suggestions, public suggestions that a senior police officer turned a blind eye to what was happening in Matthews Ridge, another major allegation that rocked the Guyana police force and law and order in Guyana, the commanding officer from Region 1, Division 1, was reassigned to the transport desk. Again, a place where there's no real work for a senior police officer. But yet, the Guyana Police Force High Command remains silent on the reason behind these turnarounds. Using your experience, tell us what really happened there.
Well, let me explain. They're using this thing about rotation. There's a euphemism for being transfer or removed. Let's understand it. And that was facilitated, or it started. It was when Brutus, who was in charge of admin, and who they say is under investigation for money laundering and financial impropriety, they claim that he requested to go on leave. My information is he was ordered to go on leave. So after he was removed from admin, that necessitated some movement, some shuffling. So what happened? Even before he went on leave, he was removed from admin, they say, to special branch. He was removed from the admin position to special branch. The man at special branch, Watts, was moved from special branch to operations. Operations man, Budram, was moved from operations to admin. And they claim, well, that is to give experience. That's nonsense. You don't move those senior people for experience. That movement came about because of the allegation against Brutus. And that was borne out because shortly thereafter, they told us that Brutus requested to go on leave and he was sent off on leave. And the man who was the second in command of Special Branch, Prem Ryan, took over that department. So again, it's an indication of the problems that they have in the management of the force. And I've been pointing this out frequently. And they are denying, they're in a state of denial. And then, as you mentioned, on the East Coast, Assistant Commissioner Pajram was in charge, Region Division 4C, with headquarters at Povanjan. And then there was an exchange of letters between himself and the crime chief, Assistant Commissioner Blanham, right? And I said that Pajram was correct in objecting to certain things that was being done. That is to say, Blanham was giving instructions to the ranks below Pajram, the detective below Pajram, to send people on bail and all of that. And Pajram quite correctly objected, because when you are in command of a police division, you're in command of the general duties rank, you're in command of the CID ranks, and you're in command of the traffic ranks, even the specialists. All elements in the division, you, the divisional commander, are in command of. So for the crime chief to have related to some inspector in C Division or Regional Division C to send a man on bail, bypassing the commander. That was inappropriate. And the commander was correct to call him out and to say what he, to write what he wrote. Now, following that, the said Commander Pajam requested to go on annualized vacation leave, which was granted. On his resumption, he was unceremoniously removed from the command in Regional Division 4C and sent to the Strategic Planning Unit. And as you said, there's a parking unit. There's like a garage, a car park. Once you go there, at that senior rank, you are parked. The only other place, there are 3 places, and I guess because of his rank, they didn't send him to the Monkey branch, or they didn't send him to the TSU. But basically, he's parked. And then we had the, and this is over the past 24 or 48 hours, following the drug bust at Matthews Ridge, where it was alleged that the commander and other police ranks, let me say that because they are saying the commander, but the information is, the allegation is the commander and other senior police ranks in Region 1 are complicit in this whole drug smuggling activity. So the commander, Senior Superintendent Shah, was removed to the police transport workshop. He took over that position, I'm advised, from a cadet officer. So you had a cadet officer in charge of the transport workshop. He has now gone, we understand, to the Marine section. And this Senior Superintendent of Police is now in charge of the transport workshop. There were other movements as well over the past 48 hours because Stanley, who was in Region 6, has gone to Region 2. And that was because I think the commander there got involved in an accident. So that was removed. But it shows again how unstable the old senior commander is. When Pajram was removed from East Coast, his second in command, Kingston, was made to take over. Within 2 weeks of that, Kingston, I understand, proceeded on annualized vacation leave, and Ray is now has now taken over. And you know, they make all kind of silly excuses because if you are in a system where it is properly planned and so on, when you decided to remove Pajram, you ought to have known that the second in command will be proceeding on leave shortly, and you would not have had him there for maybe a week or so. He would have gone straight into whoever would have been there for the for a lengthy period. But the thing is problematical, and I say that once you have that unstableness at the top of the force, people fighting against each other and all of that, you get problems, morale problem in the force, crime and other unsavory activities like road accidents and all will come out. And what I did not mention too, another letter writing, because I understand that the commander of Regional Division 4B, which is a diamond in the East Bank, Ramana, has written to Blanham, the crime chief as well, written to him formal letter, claiming he was advised by some lawyer. So they're sniping at each other. There's no unity at the top. And therefore, what do you expect? What do you expect?
Just clarify this one for me, though. The substantive rank of a cadet officer is corporal, isn't it?
Not necessarily. You can
if a cadet officer is unsuccessful at confirmation, what rank is he reverted to?
Well, it all depends on which rank he was when he became a cadet officer.
When he became a cadet officer.
You can be a constable and become a cadet officer. You can be a corporal. You can be, well, constable and corporal as we know it. But they have been manipulating the thing recently. But basically, it used to be constables and corporals. If you're a constable and you're appointed cadet officer, when the time comes after 2 years for confirmation, if you did not measure up to the standard, you're reverted to the rank that you had, which is constable. If you were a corporal at the time, if you're not confirmed, you're reverted to the rank of corporal. That is what the regulation, the standing order of the force is.
So this is where a senior superintendent of police, this is what a senior superintendent of police who held command of a division has been reduced to.
He has been reduced, and people, for those who don't know the rank structure, the commissioner is the most senior. Then you have deputy commissioners at the number 2, assistant commissioner number 3, and senior superintendents are the fourth most, or the rank is the fourth most senior rank. So it's a very senior man. He's now put at the transport workshop taken over from a cadet officer.
Now, there is disunity at the top. There are moral issues of morale at the top. There are issues of coordination of the or the absence thereof at the top. There is no deputy commissioner. The substantive rank of the commissioner acting is assistant commissioner. There seemed to be no order, no focus, no management structure that is sensible at the highest level of the Guyana Police Force. What ails the Guyana Police Force to the extent that we cannot agree on a suitable candidate for commissioner? We cannot agree on promoting persons to the offices of deputy commissioner so that you can identify a suitable candidate to be promoted to commissioner of police. The leader of the opposition has made it clear that he is not, under any set of circumstances, going to support the confirmation of the current acting commissioner of police. So that's an issue that is entirely out of the window. What ails the Guyana Police Force?
No, there's no proper. First of all, there's not the political will to make sure that the police force is professionalized. That's my view. My view is, as we all, well, not we all, we shouldn't say that. The police force is weaponized. The police force is weaponized more than ever, and I think the government wants that, so that when they want to go after the political opponents, they don't want to have a professional police force, because a professional police force or professional officers will refuse to carry out certain unlawful instructions, as I did back in 2003 when Minister Gadraj ordered me to return a firearm to one of their supporters. I stood up because that was not the correct thing, and I did what was the correct thing and was victimized because of that. So the issue is the government, they have no inclination, they don't have the political will to make changes, because that they believe that will be to their detriment. If you have a professional police force, they're not going to get away with all the things they're getting away with. For example, the Daramlal issue, both issues involving Daramlal, if you had a professional police force, that matter would have been properly investigated and he would have been charged. You have a case, the converse of that is true, where they can trump up charges against the people who are perceived to be in opposition to the government. So they don't want any real change. Any change you're going to have is cosmetic. The people at all levels are not adequately trained. That is another issue you have. They're promoting people, incompetent people, that is on steroids now, where people are promoted because of their political loyalty. You have, and I'm not going to call name now, but if they want to challenge me, I'll call names. You have a slew of senior people in positions that they have not been trained. They don't have the slightest clue as to how those things, how you should operate in that position. You have commanders who should never ever be commander because they lack the knowledge, they lack the experience, and all of that. They don't know anything about policing at that senior level. They don't know how to command ranks. They don't know how to deal with crime files. You have a situation now where all these crime files can be the simplest of matter. They send it to the Director of Public Prosecutions. Even the Director of Public Prosecutions, if you can recall some time ago, complained about the volume of files that are sent. That is because you have police officers who are sending files to the commanders in matters that they should resolve at their level. But they don't have the experience, they don't have the knowledge, so they just pass it on to the DPP and they put it there. And that is a serious problem. And let me say this, it is my view that given the configuration of the top of the force, talking about branch, let's say from the commissioner all the way down to maybe superintendent, it is a difficult task for them to identify a cadre of senior officers who can turn things around. You have one or two, you have some good police officers, no doubt. But this is not a one-man show, cannot be a one-man show. You have to have a cadre of competent professional officers in order to change this spiraling downward trend of the in the Ghana police force?
I want to shift your focus here a little bit. I get a sense that there is a focus issue that is affecting law and order in this country, crime fighting, um, the kind of um, policing that is anticipatory and so on, and intelligence led. The focus now appears to be on controlling the society as opposed to controlling the levels of crime. Why do I say that? We have unsolved crimes, murders involving members of the Guyana police force. We had the one in Essequibo, the one on the East Coast, and so on. So we have these unsolved crimes. We have a whole host of charges against people for alleged electoral malpractices, matters before the court for a very long time. We have matters against people like yourself, who are outspoken, who are calling a spade and calling out the executive on issues publicly. We have situations where crime is clearly on the rise. We had a number of incidents on the Essequibo. We have incidents here in Georgetown and on the coast here. We have road accidents, high levels of road fatality and damage to property and limb, people's physical bodies being damaged in avoidable accidents. And these things seem not to be getting the attention, the desired attention from the Guyana police force. The traffic department seems to be focused on stopping people and checking for documents, as opposed to controlling what happens on the roadway and reducing speed and dealing with drunken drivers and dealing with loud music in vehicles that cause concentration lapses and all these different dangerous driving and so on the roadways. People are unsafe in their homes and in their businesses. People are fearful. But here you are, as a government, pushing cybercrime legislation. We understand that when Parliament reconvenes after the recess, that cybercrime legislation is going to be strengthened. There are going to be regulations and perhaps some amendments to the actual substantive legislation. The focus seems to be to control what people say in the exercise of freedom of speech, which is a constitutionally guaranteed right. And so you're going to have to focus on all these cybercrime situations that are going to be created out of this legislation, because we're hearing, and the Attorney General can speak to these matters and let us know if what we're hearing is accurate or not, that if a person makes a post and someone shares that post and it is found to be offensive by anybody else, then the persons who share are as culpable as the person who originates the broadcast. And then if persons were to comment beneath a post, then the person who made the post is liable for the actions of the person who made the comment. And these are all bits and pieces of information that we're getting out of the bosom of the executive, which worry and trouble people out here. And if you make a post, it is being suggested now that if you make a post under these new regulations, you don't name a person, but you say enough so that there can be a connection of dots leading to a person. Then that person could go and report and say, well, you said something against me and you cyberbullied me, or whatever the case may be. And the political axe is going to come down. So there seems to be a focus problem here. Road deaths on the rise, murders on the rise, Unsolved crimes still on ice, but we're going after critics of the government with cybercrime legislation. Talk to us, Mr. Slowe, on this matter.
Well, when you talk about focus, it is evident, very evident, that the Guyana Police Force, as currently led, has lost its focus. The focus as contained, or the primary role as contained in the Police Act, Chapter 601, they tell you about the prevention and detection of crime. Those are the two main things. You should prevent, and then you should detect crime, right? But what you have now, you have policemen being mobilized to clean the streets of Georgetown and elsewhere. That is mobilized to do that. Not so long ago, you had a unit from the police force, tactical services unit, mobilized and put together to lay pavement along the East Bank and elsewhere. In the meanwhile, you have all of these crimes. They are not mobilizing as we did in the past for what we call mass patrols and activities that were with positively impact on crime and the traffic lawlessness. So they have lost focus. They go now, they are telling themselves they believe that they are politicians. So the focus, and you see the acting commissioner and even the divisional commanders, the focus is to go and to shake hands and all that. Those things are good. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be interacting with members of the community, but you got to recognize that your main focus should be the prevention and detection of crime. When it comes to the traffic situation, same thing. And you know, today, I think it's in today's editorial, or not today, I should have said on Friday's editorial of Starbuck News, they talk about the campaign mode and the campaign syndrome. So you have noise nuisance, people complaining. They were referring to several complaints out of Lenora on the west coast of Demerara. People make complaints. These are issues that affect people's lives, and they're not responding. One man wrote not so long ago, between 7:21 one night and 11 something, he made 6 calls to the police about noise nuisance, and there was no proper response. Those are the things they should be focusing on to make sure that people are more comfortable. When it comes to the crime, look, let me say this. Essequibo, the Cinderella country as it used to be referred to, Essequibo Coast in particular, Region Division number 2, used to call it G Division years ago. It was always one of the more quiet divisions, 1 or 2 serious crime all year, if that many. Now, only you had murder. Only yesterday, I think it was 2 days ago, a couple days ago, the commander responding to some robbery and the vehicle crashed and he's injured. I wish him a speedy recovery. But I'm saying that things are not operating in the manner they ought to operate. When it comes to the cybercrime that you're talking about, the police have been weaponized. A soldier speaks something, it's a cybercrime. Sherrod Duncan, Member of Parliament, referred to a man as a trench crapper. He made a mistake, he's charged with cybercrime. Annette Ferguson, another Member of Parliament, said something about the current Chief of Staff, Omar Khan. He made a report that it affected him, cybercrime. Imagine that you have the Chief of Staff of the Guyana Defense Force, some politician, and let's give him that. The politician might have said something that is totally incorrect. But you were telling me that that has affected you to the extent, psychologically, to the extent that you have to make a police report against that person. Of course, he even went to court to give evidence, and the matter was thrown out. But it is being weaponized. So you say something, it is cybercrime. You know, you're referencing the amendments that are likely to be made shortly. One would recall about 2 years ago, the Attorney General, the current Attorney General, Nandalal, said the Cybercrime Act would be repealed. He said the act would be repealed because when they were in opposition, because this is an act that came into being under the coalition government, they were warned about it, but they went ahead. I think they removed one section dealing with sedition or something like that. But they went ahead with it. In fairness to them, it was never used against anyone. Now that this government has returned, the PPP government, it is on steroids. As soon as you say anything, it is a cybercrime. As soon as you say anything, they get the police. And not only the police, because the system, the DPP as well. The DPP charging people, yes, with the Karen Bruce matter. All of these matters are being struck out. All. And it is very, very worrying. And I would hope that the lawyers, the human rights people, will examine this proposed amendment very, very carefully. Because as you said, that is what I'm getting. I have not seen the draft. I don't know if the draft has been circulated, but what is being said, that they are going to criminalize people now, that if someone makes a post on social media, which someone else claims is either derogatory or defamatory to them, the person who makes the post is going to be liable under the Cybercrime Act. If someone shares that post, the person who shared the post is liable to be is equally culpable. And if you comment on the post in a manner that suggests that you might be in favor of the post, then that too is going to be criminalized. And perhaps the most worrying, as you said, you don't even have to mention a person's name. You don't have to mention a person's name. You say things that the person feels that because of what you said. Because we would say, for example, a minister. Sometimes you make a comment and you say somewhere in Ralph Street or somewhere in Brigdam, northwest of the Brigdam police station. Anybody in northwest there can then decide, well, based on that description, that fits me, and I am the person they are referring to. They can go and make a report, and what we understand that is likely to be a charge. That is madness, and this thing should be opposed strongly, not only locally, but you got to internationalize this thing. That's a violation of human rights. What happened to the libel laws? What happened to the slander laws? I've always said, if a person libels someone, or if they make slanderous statements, the laws are there for the individual to take civil action against that person. But for the government now to pass law to criminalize such behavior, it just is the design is to silence what the people they refer to as critics. And I'm not referring to that critics. I'm referring to people who are making comments like myself, who they deem to be critical of the government. I'm not critical. I'm pointing out acts of corruption. And if they believe pointing out acts of corruption is criminal, then I don't know. Or if they believe pointing out acts of corruption is anti-government, I don't know what else to say. But I am saying now, you see, sometimes we sit back and we wait too long. Now that we hear certain things, we don't know if it is totally true, but the responsibility is on the government to let people know what are the provisions or what are the amendments to be made and how it's going to be, how it's likely to affect. And the lawyers and other people, the human rights people, should examine this very carefully and to see if it is not a violation. And what you did not mention too is that they're saying with this new amendment, whichever part of the world you are. So if you're in the United States, if you're in the UK, if you're anywhere in the Caribbean, and you make a post about someone in Guyana, then they are trying to give the police in Guyana the authority. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? That if you are in America and you make a comment critical of the government, they are now saying that the Guyana police force, that is the understanding when the amendment is made, that the Guyana police force would have jurisdiction to deal with you wherever you are. Total madness. And again, I say the authorities should make sure, I'm going to say authorities, I'm not talking about the government here, but the opposition, the people looking at human rights, and all right-minded people should examine this legislation very, very carefully. And it must be considered, it must be unconstitutional. I'm not a lawyer, but what I have heard so far, if that is true, I am sure that many provisions are unconstitutional and it should be challenged all the way up to the Caribbean Court of Justice if it comes to that.
Let's shift in the interest of time to another very important area that impacts law and order, law enforcement, maintenance of order. We have an acting commissioner of police on extension. He has gone past the age of retirement. He's gone past the age of retirement, and his tenure has been extended. Many argued that his tenure was incorrectly extended because his tenure as assistant commissioner, his substantive rank, is not where the extension came. but it came at the level of his acting appointment, whereas it should have been at the level of his substantive appointment. That notwithstanding, he is there in the office, he's on extension. There is no deputy commissioner of police serving at this time in the Guyana Police Force. The last one retired earlier this year, Dr. Paul Williams, my apologies. And here we are at a crucial time in the history of our country with the DEA doing our work for us and the Guyana Police Force not being involved, clearly from the reports. No deputy commissioner, no succession planning evident in the top management of the Guyana Police Force. The presence of a civilian arm of the police force dealing with its public relations, clearly clueless about policing. You would recall that during your tenure as a serving officer of the Guyana Police Force, there was a gentleman named Henry Green who was crime chief and who was later appointed commissioner of police, even though Guyana's international partners were uncomfortable working with him, as they publicly said. President Jagdeo, as he then was, proceeded to appoint Mr. Green commissioner of police, and that did not go down well with our international partners. Here we are with all that is happening in the Guyana Police Force's upper echelons in terms of allegations of corruption and money laundering and all these things. Where are we going to find a commissioner of police from that is going to satisfactorily carry out the duties and functions of that office, and whose character and integrity satisfies our international partners based on all that we're reading, seeing, and hearing?
Now, let me say this. I am reluctant to name names because if you call name, they are going to target. That's how vindictive they are. So if I'm to say that a particular person perhaps is the most qualified or favored or should be the most favored, they're going to use that perhaps to deny that person promotion. But, you know, even before they appointed Ikin, I had said publicly, and it wasn't nothing personal, that he's not qualified academically or otherwise. But they went ahead and they made the appointment. They stuck because we understand that was a promise made before the 2020 elections. That is what was said. Now, the matter about Mr. Green, you mentioned, it was public that the partners, the international partners, were uncomfortable with him, and they signaled clearly that they did not want him to be appointed. The Americans even went so far as to revoke his visa prior to the appointment, and the allegation was that he benefited from the drug trade. Notwithstanding that, President Jagdeo went ahead and appointed him. I am of the view, and many persons are of the same view, that the reason why they did that was to deny me promotion because I was the second most senior man after Green. I was that person. And as I indicated, in 2003, I stood up to Gajraj and Jagdeo when they wanted the firearm returned to the supporter from West Coast Borbis. So Green was kept on long after retirement, even though the people had signaled clearly they did not want him to be there because they did not trust him. Now, when you have a commissioner of police who is not trusted by the international partners, especially the Americans, you have a problem, as evidenced over the last weekend. So you have an acting commissioner, you have a crime chief, you have all of these senior people, and as we said earlier, a massive operation involving the Drug Enforcement Agency of the U.S., the Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit of Guyana, and the Special Forces of the Guyana Defense Force, and not a single police. It is clear that they did not involve the police for a reason. And therefore, it is problematical. You have, and let me say this, whoever they decide to make the commissioner of police, because no matter what they do, at some stage, they have to make a commissioner of police. They're going to could delay it as much as they want. The current person who is acting there, Akin, is long past his retirement age. And let me check to see all that has been happening since has been there. All this drug bust we talk about money laundering, we're talking about officers complicit in all kind of serious matters. Brutus, for example, it is alleged that the man has properties all over the place, millions and millions of dollars in properties all over. How did he become of that money? He came to that position as admin in 2020 after the government change. Allegations against the very commissioner himself, right? So I'm saying this, that you cannot have an LT arrangement when allegations are being made against the most senior people in the organization. And whoever is appointed, this cannot be a one-man show. So even if you were to appoint the person you believe to be the most suited, you have to make sure that the other players at the senior level are competent and capable. The police force cannot be run by one man. It has to be run by several people who are divisional commanders, who are branch commanders, who are competent and capable. But they have this personality thing now, especially since no deputy commissioner has been appointed for the longest while, as you say, even though they will tell you, if you read in the news and the releases from the police, they tell you about acting deputy commissioner Boudram and acting deputy commissioner law enforcement. There's no acting deputy commissioner. They're trying to say, well, they acted in that position. I performed the functions as deputy commissioner operations from 2008 until I returned, until I retired in 2012. And at no time was I referred to as acting deputy commissioner operations. It wasn't so. My substantive rank was assistant commissioner, and I was referred to as assistant commissioner operations. That is what it always was. Because even though there is a requirement, according to the chart, for four, well, now I think they increased it to 4 deputy commissioners. When assistant commissioners function in those offices, they were referred to in a substantive position. So you had assistant commissioner administration, assistant commissioner operations, assistant commissioner law enforcement. The man of special branch, he never referred to them as rank, he referred to the head of this special branch, a rank that should be a deputy commissioner. But they come and it's part of the deceitfulness that is going on. There is no deputy commissioner, either acting or substantive. And I have to point them out to Article 211 of the Constitution, which says how the process to appoint commissioner. And they tell you the same process to appoint deputy commissioner. That is to say, either substantive or acting. The appointment is made by the president after meaningful consultation with the opposition leader, and he also has to consult as the president with the chairman of the Police Service Commission, who has to first consult with the other members. So the process is laid out in the Constitution. In the absence of that process, you cannot say that the person is acting. So we are in for a terrible time because, as I've said before, and as you had alluded to, ranks are tending the resignation in large numbers. And what they have decided at the administrative level, they are not accepting those resignations. Now you tell me this: if someone wants to leave the force, and that person tenders his or resignation, and you say we're not allowing you to go, how motivated will that person be to continue working? You have a person there, you just have a body. The person cannot be committed to doing the work. And if the person is not of solid moral fiber, then they go rogue. They go rogue and they do all manner of criminal things. So it's a very serious national security situation where you have a police force as dysfunctional as this one is. It is evident. It's not me saying so. Criminal investigations against senior persons, they said so. Then we refer to the drug fine, where they are completely excluded. It is a very, very serious situation.
Quickly, Mr. Slowe, this conversation is one that needs to be continued, but we're rapidly running out of time. This cocaine find at Matthews Ridge is a couple of miles from the Venezuelan border. We have issues with Venezuela over Essequibo. These operations are happening on that border in our territory. Guyana is not known to be a producer of cocaine, so it has to come from somewhere outside of Guyana. The fact that these aircrafts and these personnel handling this um, drug trafficking arrangement can access our country at will, at leisure, and enter and exit safely presents, in my view, a frightening territorial integrity risk factor, a national sovereignty factor. Comment quickly on that for us, please, before we wrap up, Mr. Slowe.
Well, certainly. We've always had porous borders, but this operation we're talking about here, and when you hear the distance from the strip and is an area where you have people, it shows that the intelligence is a breakdown in the intelligence system. Because I don't think that an airplane, it's not a, have to be given the amount of cocaine, 4,400 kilograms. There have to have been several flights because I understand, given the configuration, given the length of the strip, it can't be no big plane coming into land. It has to be relatively small aircraft that are doing this. And you want to tell me that your system is so porous, your intelligence is so poor that these things can be coming in there and you don't know what is going on? Or perhaps, as it's been suggested, the information might have passed to the people there, the policemen there, but because of the complicity in this whole thing, they did not do anything except perhaps collect, because it has been said too that people were paid bribes not to only turn a blind eye, but not to report the frequent landing and taking off of aircraft, and to not to report suspicious activities in the area. It is very, very worrying. It simply means that the Venezuelans can come across there too, right? Can come across, and when you catch yourself, they take over towns in Region 1 and all that. It's a frightening national security crisis that we have there. This has made it very, very evident that, and again, a border like Region 1, or Region 1, a division like Region 1, you ought to have had experienced police officers. This officer that I understand, they've been very inexperienced, has no real policing experience. You ought to have someone who's very experienced, who understands that he has to have relationship with members of the community. So if Venezuelans were to come across illegally, that information can be garnered and fed to those in authority. But big problem, big problem.
Might I add, Mr. Slowe, that the Papaya Training Center of the Guyana National Service was maybe 3-4 miles from the Matthews Ridge airstrip. No, sorry, not 3-4 miles. More like 7 or 8 miles from the Matthews Ridge airstrip. But that airstrip is overlooked by a hill. There's a hill looking down on that airstrip. And on that hill, there was always a military base. There were foxholes and everything on that hill, concealed, camouflage. You couldn't look from the roadway and detect the presence of military personnel. And that was there. The People's Progressive Party, in their term of office from 92 to 2015, removed that base. That hill has now been converted to a gold mine. And the military base has gone. But the presence of that base was a deterrent to this kind of activity. It raises questions about why such a base would have been removed. I remember as a child, there was a Venezuelan aircraft that crashed there one night. And members of the Guyana National Service, Guyana Defense Force, and that base went there with the assistance of civilians and removed all of the persons in that aircraft before it blew, before it exploded, because they were right on time, right on site. And according to the reports, this illegal airstrip was just a stone's throw away from the official airstrip. So, I mean, the changes have all impacted negatively on our national security, I'd say. In maybe, Mr. Slowe, we have maybe about 3 minutes or so for your closing comments, please.
Well, first, I'd like to thank you for inviting me on this program, this Sunday program. Um, I just said it's about law and order, or the lack of law and order. And it's as a any law-abiding citizen ought to be very concerned with the levels of crime and fatal and other accidents on the road. I mean, even recently, I was surprised to see the Attorney General saying that the government is concerned about the levels of crime. After, for a long time, saying that crime was under control, and they give you figures to suggest that things were under control. About a month or so ago, the Attorney General made a statement, it is carried in one of the dailies, that the government is concerned about the crime. And the levels of crime ought to concern every single person. And this, we're not talking about only street crimes, we talk about home invasions. Only recently, businessman in Essequibo is killed in his home. These are worrying things. These are worrying, as I said, not only street crimes where you have the pickpocket, because to call choke and rob in the street, but home invasion, that is a worrying thing. And what are they doing? I don't see any proper plan to deal with this. As I said earlier, they mobilize to clean the streets, to clean the seawall. That's what the police are mobilized to do. They're not mobilized to deal with their core functions. And that is because there is no vision at the top. There's no vision even coming from the Ministry of Home Affairs or the government level. They get big propaganda, men on a mission. On a mission for what? They said they're building houses and they're giving things to people. The police core function is the prevention and detection of crime. And given what is going on in Guyana today, all energies should be directed towards that. And again, thank you very much for having me on the program. I enjoyed the interaction, and I look forward to other invitations.
Mr. Slowe, CCH, Paul Slowe, CCH, DSM, retired Assistant Commissioner of Police, Guyana Police Force, and former chairman of the Police Service Commission, my guest today on Nation Watch. Thank you very much for joining me. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have time for today on Nation Watch. Until we meet again, God bless.